I'm sitting in a classroom at Portland State University. I am becoming a school librarian. The year is 1990. Card catalogs and encyclopedias still roam the earth. Al Gore has not yet invented the internets. Most people don't have personal computers, let alone mobile phones. And Ted, as in Bill and Ted? Excellent. My professor, Dr. Joyce Petrie, is very serious about librarianship. I've noticed that she doesn't laugh very much. Today, she looks out at the class and deadpans, "Never let them see you shush." This is the Nancy Pearl librarian action figure with amazing push-button shushing action. It's named after a real librarian from the Seattle Public Library and has all the features you've come to expect from librarians, like reading glasses, mild-mannered clothing, sensible shoes, and that amazing shushing action. I'm pretty sure that Joyce Petrie rolled over in her grave the day this toy hit the market. Now, I have a hunch that you remember a librarian from your past. Am I? Okay. Got a quick question for you. Was it the librarian who found you just the right book? Or perhaps, wait a minute, the librarian who kicked you out of the library for talking too much? For me, it was the latter. Dr. Harry Sturman's, Hudson's Bay High School, 1982. 10 years after he kicked me out of the library, I became a teacher librarian myself and have spent most of my professional career teaching in a school library, including several years with Harry Sturman's. In spite of loving my job, I've semi-seriously fought against the stereotypes. I've invented alternative job titles like Slayer of Information Ignorance with a black belt in Think-Kwon-Do. It's true. Google it, you'll find me. I've also made a point of never wearing sensible shoes. I've recently traded the library for a job as Chief Digital Officer for Vancouver Public Schools. To many in the IT community, I represent the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. But today, I want to talk about school libraries and librarians. I have no idea if in 1990 Joyce Petrie predicted the changes that were coming to libraries and information and technology, but she was on to something. I have a theory and a question that I'd like to explore with you today. The theory is that we're very good at associating librarians with our past. The question is do you see them as part of the future? Fast forward to 2008. I'm a librarian and I've been invited to a district budget meeting. I've never been in a hurricane before, but I can now imagine what it's like to be at the briefing when the meteorologist tells the decision makers that a Category 5 storm is on its way. In its place of a hurricane, there is a projected $20 million budget shortfall. And for the first time in my professional life, I feel existential fear. Despite years of support for school libraries in our district, this could be the 100-year storm. Here in California, according to the Department of Education, the storms have already hit. Less than 10% of schools in California have school librarians. That ranks them last among 50 states. And during the last decade and the Great Recession, a great many other districts have followed suit, cutting or reducing library programs. But in 2008, in that room, I decided to change the conversation. Instead of asking, what are you going to do for school libraries and librarians, I asked, what can we do for you? So I went to my boss and I convinced her to train librarians as trainers for a new digital service that was being deployed in our district. It went so well that we expanded it to other topics. And suddenly, despite really tight budgets, we had building technology leaders that we didn't have before. And more importantly, librarians were connected to the strategic work of our district and could be seen as having value beyond the library. Later that year, in fact, the storm did hit. But in Vancouver, Washington, the libraries stayed open and the librarians continued to support students and teachers. And we've never looked back. Just this last week, My superintendent, Dr. Steve Webb, tweeted about teacher librarians. He said something to the effect of, TLs are indispensable to our strategic vision. Hashtag future ready graduates, period. And we're not alone. An effort called Project Connect started back in 2012, and it pulled together superintendents and district leaders around a common belief that school libraries and librarians are essential parts of 21st century schools. And more recently, I've been really excited because we've been working with Joseph South and the Department of Education and the Alliance for Excellent Education to connect libraries to the Future Ready Initiative and Pledge, which over 2,100 superintendents have already signed. Well, what does this look like in a library? Librarian Tracy Chen at Skyview High School has long noticed that kids don't come to the library for information anymore, and if they do, they go right to the computer lab. This year, every kid got an iPad. Talk about a perfect storm. But Tracy is also changing the conversation. She's reinventing herself and her library. She's taking those things that have always been great about libraries and then remixing it to meet the needs of her students and teachers today. The important thing about Tracy is that she understands that she's a teacher. And so she has learned the new apps, and then she's turning around so that the students and teachers are the first one to understand how to use them. And she's also teaching important things like digital citizenship and information literacy. And if they don't come to the library, she goes to the classroom. Tracy also understands that people intuitively come to the library for help. So she's made a home for the techies that are supporting the iPad deployment. And she's made a student-run Genius Bar. So it's the first place where students go for questions about how to fix their iPad. She still has books in the library, but she's removed the unused reference section and replaced it with flexible furnishings so the students have a place to work and collaborate, something that's kind of hard to find in a school with 2,000 students. Tracy's also noticing that when it comes to information, kids today consume less and make more. In her library, she has 2 resident student hackers, and they're currently developing a rubric to evaluate all of the making kits that are coming on the market. The hope is that they can be a maker test kitchen for the district. If you ask Tracy what her library is going to look like in another year, she would probably admit she has no idea. So for now, she's bringing in both sewing machines and makey kits. Tracy told me the other day that she was collecting and she had just received the makey kits, and a high school girl comes up and asks, "Can I borrow one?" And of course, Tracy says yes, and the girl takes it off to a corner of the library, comes back sometime later with a big smile on her face. And she says, thanks, Mrs. Chen. These things are so cool. I've really wanted one of these, but I can't afford one. That's why we have libraries. What makes Tracy's story so powerful is that few of these ideas were original. She's borrowed them from other librarians that are already doing these things around the United States. Future-ready librarians, they're out there. So the next time you're in a conversation with someone about libraries and librarians, make sure they're talking as much about the future as about the past. And if you want to shush them, that's up to you. Thank you very much.